Hello, Steve White, Steve Out 9. Well, Psycho is one of my favourite movie series. I haven't watched it for years, but Olivia Hussey died recently and I had just watched Black Christmas, so to do a tribute to her, I decided to watch the Psycho film. She's in Psycho 4. And it was kind of interesting because I watched them on Blu-ray. I have not watched them on Blu-ray since I bought the Blu-rays like 10 years ago. And the last time I watched them was on DVD when I think I still had a TV screen. So seeing them in high definition on a widescreen screen was fairly amazing because I haven't watched them that way yet. And there are little things that you notice, like you can see Mrs. Bates' features in the window, stuff like that, which does make viewing a bit more interesting. Now, the film itself, it is loosely based on the novel Psycho, which was based on the true events of Ed Gein and his ghoulish behaviour. And it was made through the television department, Hitchcock's production company, because the studio didn't have much faith in it. It was a very simple little horror film, and he basically partially financed it himself and did very well from it. It was a huge hit. They had quite a campaign where you couldn't go into the cinema during the screening. They would close the doors because once upon a time people would just buy a ticket and walk into movies in the middle and stay for a couple of movies. Apparently it was just not the way we do it today. And it was the first film that said you have to be there from the beginning or you won't be allowed in. And it was a big campaign. People were rushing and lining up, and I think it was one of the first films people lined up for like that. That's the image they've given either way. So, see, black and white, which was a budget thing, I wouldn't mind seeing a coloured version. I don't think there's a crime to that, particularly if something's made black and white due to budget, not for artistic reasons, but it can go both ways. I've seen colour films converted to black and white because people think it's more artistic. Okay, so it's a very simple story. Marion Crane is in a relationship with a man who has just divorced a woman and he doesn't have his finances together and he feels they can't be together until he's, the provider and all that. And she goes back to work after the little rendezvous and Hitchcock is standing outside waiting for a bus or something. And this guy comes in with a bunch of money. He's buying a house for his daughter because she's getting married. And she goes home, she's got a headache, and she just gets it in her head to take this money and run away with her boyfriend. So she does. Her boss sees her leaving town, which is just perfect timing. And she ends up at the Bates Motel. And I think, as you all know, things don't go well. Now, the shower scene, of course, is art. It's just, it's perfect, basically. The intercutting, which people believed they saw her being stabbed and saw things that weren't there. All the things that are implied through that are amazing. It's still art now. Some people will look at it and say there's more complicated editing, more fascinating editing, in scenes, in films and so forth since then. But it was the first really highly stylized, standout sort of, really drew attention to, what you can do with editing, stuff like that, I think. The film is basically the granddaddy of slasher films. It's more classy than your average slasher film from the late 70s and the 80s, but it was kind of the first, and it was a big film. It was huge, and everything about it's interesting. The trailer Hitchcock did where he takes audiences on a tour of the house and, manages to avoid all the actual detail, but goes through the whole house. They built the house on the hill. It's still there. It's been renovated. It's still there. It exists. I wish I could see it. I don't know if I ever will. Unfortunately, they built Whoville behind it. So if you go to see it, it's not quite the same. The house is fine, but the motel is sort of built in front of Whoville now, so I don't know why they did something like that, but, Janet Leigh's performance is great. She's anal, she is repressed, she's still has some depth, some character. She realises through talking to Norman Bates, because she ends up in his parlour having sandwiches, talking about life, and he gets on the subject of his mother and being trapped, and she realised she's walked into a trap, but she can go back. During all this, she ended up spending, I think, $700 on a new car to try and avoid a police officer, but then he saw her anyway buy the new car, so I don't know why she didn't just quit while she was ahead and go get back in the old car and drive off. But so she decided to go back and fix things, and the boss who she'd worked for 10 years seemed to be prepared to negotiate and manage the whole thing, and they weren't going to the police or anything, because her sister comes looking for her and alerts the boyfriend of the fact that she's gone missing. A private detective shows up that's hired by the rich Texas guy, and they all end up converging on the Bates mansion and classic horror ensues. I won't go into too many details, just on the odd case someone has not watched the film and is watching this review, which I don't think that's going to happen very often. But if even one person has the film spoiled by me, I would not like that. So it's a great film. It's a classic. It looks amazing. It's beautiful. The high definition print is great. And I'm ashamed that when I saw it as a kid, I was bored by it. And I saw Psycho 3 on TV just after that, which was basically a slasher. And I was like disappointed that it wasn't like that. It took me a few years to appreciate it, probably about 3, till I was about 16. And then I started showing it to my friends. And 2 is almost as good. 3 is a slasher, and 4 is pretty good as well. But I'm going to go and do reviews of them. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.